Hey guys, welcome. So today I'm going to be talking about getting started with woodworking even when you're strapped for cash, right? So wood's pretty expensive and that could be a reason you're not getting started. So don't let that be the reason. And so today I'm talking about pallets, right? So pallet wood is a good source of some wood, and going through just kind of the process of how I source some of that. Pretty good planks can come out of some pallets. They just need a little bit of work. And so this edge here, that could be trimmed down with a table saw or a circular saw. A table saw is certainly going to give you a better option. Even something like this, you can get, a partial plank out of that. I'm showing some stuff that I've milled down from pallet wood that, resembles normal stock that you would find in the store. Small, of course, but you can use this stuff for glue ups or other types of projects. You just get creative and figure out what you can do with it. And so talking about cutting it down, this is one of the strips that I came up with out of one of the pieces. And if you look, even this board, it's got this big break, it's still got a good chunk of material there that could be used for something. So even in a glue up, that's going to be that diameter, that thickness. So we're going to dive in, show you just kind of the process I go through in breaking down pallets. There's no real trick to it. I mean, I feel like my trick is okay. I don't have any special tools. I'm really just using a circular saw, a hammer, and pulling them apart. I'm going to say pulling them apart a lot because that's what you're doing. You're pulling the pallets apart and stocking up on each one of those boards. So, but you might have a better way of doing it. If you have anything like that, put it in the comments. Love to hear new ideas. There's a lot of people that have some better tools and stuff, but again, I don't have some of those tools and I don't necessarily want to spend the money to get anything else. I'd rather put that money elsewhere right now. So right now, this is what I got and this is what we're doing. So let's dive in. All right, so here's the pallets that we're going to be pulling apart for some of the projects that we got going on. So, this is a pretty tedious task. There's some people that have come up with like a rig to like pallet poppers and such to pull them apart. What I like to do is I just take the circular saw, go right across the edges here, and then I pull the middles out. So not necessarily saving all this wood on the end. I just get as close as I can to the edges of each pallet, and then I just save as full of the planks as I can. So you get some of that rough look on some of the projects with these nails in the middle there. Typically I'm using them for glue ups and stuff for the projects that I'm doing with them. But ultimately I just need to get them out of the way so I have a little more room to work. I definitely need to clean up my garage a little bit. All my tools are kind of piled into this side over here. These are, I just kind of stacked them up when I pulled them from where I got them. But again, you just gotta get these pulled apart, make all stack out of them, and that'll become the project base. But onto the tedious part with pulling them apart. And then as you're doing the other side, they can kind of start to bind, so you just got to be really careful as you're going through them. One of the things I found a little easier, instead of just always trying to push straight through to the next one, sometimes if you just hold the guard open on the saw, and then just lay the guard on the back there and lay it down almost like you're doing with a chop block, a miter saw. Again, once I get the two sides off, I'll flip it over, do the same thing. And then the sides will be completely separated. And then I'll have just this middle section here, which I'll just start prying apart, use a hammer, whatever, and then pop the nails through. But again, there's a bunch of people that have come up with some pretty solid tools for getting these things apart. So if you're doing a lot of pallet stuff, you could look those up. But some guys are using like an air tool. They created like a little nail remover that pushes them through. That might even be something you can buy commercially. But and then again, some people have come up with welding together kind of like a fork that goes in there and you pry them open. You could just use a normal crowbar and stuff. But again, the main point is to just get them apart and get as much wood out of it as you can to do whatever projects you're going to do.
of the guard and press it down, the blade's also going to be chopping towards the direction that you're already grounding, so it won't get any bind and shoot it back at you. All right, so we're kind of through a couple pallets here. Again, just pull them apart. You notice how it's easy to come up with some cheap wood, free most likely, to be able to work on some projects. I refer to them for my channel and for what I'm doing as redeemed creations. So yeah, again, not necessarily the fun part, not necessarily the glorious part. But pulling apart, you know, you get some really good messed up wood that inside it is some sort of project waiting to be created. So again, low cost, a little bit of muscle, and get the work done, and then on to the fun part in creating stuff. So if you guys have come up with a easier way to pull these things apart, you know, comment below. Always welcome to improve. You know, just working with the tools I have at my disposal currently. Of course, there's going to be better ways to do stuff. But again, it's just one of the things you gotta get it done and move on to the fun part. Definitely very tedious. And then after I get all these things pulled apart, still gotta go and remove all the nails. So definitely a lot of little minutia that goes into it. Lots of splinters if you're not wearing gloves, busting knuckles, but it's all part of it. So I just finished pulling all these pallets apart. I saved you guys the pain of watching me pull all the nails out, because that's the part that I just finished, but otherwise, you know, just good old-fashioned hammer and hammering them and pulling them out one by one. But a good chunk of pieces to be able to pull from later. Now that all that's left is to get these stacked up nicely out of my way so that I can get on to the next project. I have a bit of a mess to clean up, of course. With all this leftover stuff, I typically will chop this stuff down. Not spending any time on it, but chopping it down so it'll fit in the fire pit. Go ahead and get to reuse it as some firewood outside. Some of these pallets could have been treated with something, so definitely don't use that inside your home or anything, but you know, outside should be perfectly fine, but you know, make sure you look that up and make that decision for yourself. But ultimately we get to reuse all of that, and I don't have to deal with throwing it away. I don't even pull the nails out of it, so I take all those after the wood's gone and just pull them out of the bottom of the fire pit. And otherwise, yeah, so otherwise now I just gotta clean up what's left here, blow out the garage, sweep. And there's one thing I did want to point out was when you are pulling these pallets apart, if you look at this nail here, you're gonna see it's got some little copper glued on it. Something to consider if you plan on gluing these up or running them through a planer, those will nick those blades on your planer. So I've had it happen to me several times. The pallet wood themselves could have extra miscellaneous nails or staples or things like that, depending on what the pallets were used for. So make sure you look that wood over really well. Chances are you're probably still gonna get stung with that. Chances are you're still gonna end up running some metal through your planer. So that's a risk you are going up against if you're gonna use pallet wood and use your planer. You know, you can totally just sand this stuff down with a palm sander. You don't have to use a planer, but using a planer is definitely how you can get some really nice stock out of this kind of lumber. But I spent a few hours pulling these pallets apart. This stack was, before I even started shooting this video, this pallet was about as tall as I am. So definitely several hours went into pulling that stuff apart. So it's up to you whether you think that time's worth it. I do enjoy the final projects that come out of that. I like seeing what I've reclaimed out of some of this wood that would have otherwise just been disposed of.
Otherwise, an easier way to start out would be maybe just some cheap pine, of course. You can hit up a Home Depot and hit their bargain bin where it's usually 70% off or something like that. If you, go to that little bargain bin with the purple, you can ask the people there about it. But typically they'll have some stuff that's broken and the ends are chipped or something. You don't need the ends. You can, chop it down to what you need. Another really good spot that I found is an active construction site. They're dumpsters. Going to the dumpster diving where they've thrown pieces away. They might have nails in them where they've torn down walls that didn't work, or just pieces they broke, and they're not going to take the time to try and save those pieces, but you can. And so I do that quite a bit. I've actually got a full stack of wood over here that basically all of that came from just finding really nice pieces in the dumpsters. But otherwise, another easy way to start out is some 2x8s. Those usually are really straight. You don't have to worry about any curling and stuff, and you can strip them down to 2x4s if you got a table saw. You just cut them down, and that's actually the next project I'll be moving on to is finishing this bench that's in my garage. But and I've been making that out of 2x8s, and I'm just cutting them down to solid pieces that I'm using. But again, this is just a update of kind of what the process looks like of having to go through pulling apart 2x4s, all the effort that goes into getting that stock to create some of these things that I come up with. So, all right, until next time, thanks.
Right, so as I called out in the text a few moments ago, make sure to check your local laws and codes about dumpster diving, as well as talk to the builder company for permission first. Everything I've gotten, I first had permission to do so. So make sure you guys consider that. Here's a look at the stack of wood sourced from the pallets. Thank you for watching. I hope my videos are of benefit. I have several projects planned for recording, so please like and subscribe to be notified as I add new content.